Hello everyone, my name is Notepad and I write games for fun. So what are we doing today? Well, today we're going to be working on Sanguine Nights Terrible Curses, otherwise known as that game about the vampires. Or, in its alternate title, It's Morbin Time 2, It's More Morbin. Yeah, we're going to be working on this vampire game today. Sanguine Nights Terrible Curses, about Vampire Glowies. That I'm trying to aim at least to be an incredibly episodic, vaguely Japanese-esque game, and I think I've got the core idea down. I don't think am I saying it's going to be flawless? Absolutely not. However, I am really going to try my best here. So, the basic idea, as you can see by my little notes over here, I've got a few ideas. Right now, my basic concept is a D6 plus D6 plus modifiers game. Now, what does that mean? It's more accurately going to be an attribute D6 modifiers game, and not modifiers, but you know what I mean. So an average roll might be like 4d6 plus 2. This does have the implication that I need to make at least every attribute have a 1 in it, but we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, this is kind of like the basic idea, and that plus 2 doesn't seem like a lot, but that's kind of how the cookie metaphorically crumbles. Now, the main gimmick comes from the idea of the power dice, which I'm going to put like right here, which is the concept of power dice. Power dice are directly tied to increasing a die, increasing the die used to do d10s instead. So, for example, let's say I have a 4d6. Let's say I have a 4d6. If I use the power die, I can increase it to 4d10, which is quite a big difference. You're actually increasing your power pretty exponentially, and that's on purpose. That's what I'm kind of looking to do, because I want this to. There's going to be a noticeable problem with the idea of let's kind of say a resource game a little bit here. Now, this resource game is important. This is something that's going to be kind of a fundamental thing to even make this kind of game work. That being, it's going to be spend resource, acquire power. That's the big idea. Spend a resource, acquire the power, you're going to get your power dice, and increase the die used to d10s. or something similar to that. That's kind of the basic concept of the system as of right now. Does it need a little bit more refining? I think so. However, the big idea is, if we go over to here, which is the, actually I need to do, I'm trying to organize my notes here. So we need to put you right there, you right there, you right there, you right there. So yeah, put you right there. Okay, cool. Because the main idea is that the resources so far, I have 2 resources that I'm thinking of employing. These aren't final, but these are kind of like how I'm thinking how things are going to go. One being blood flow, which is kind of more, you can say, the over resource. This is the thing that you're clicking down in. You're always losing your blood flow. You're always losing the amount of stuff you have, and you're always encouraged to spend it. Well, I need to use a little bit of blood flow to add another die. I need to use a little bit of blood flow to raise all my dice to D10s. I want to use a little bit of blood flow here. I want to use a little bit of blood flow there. That's kind of the idea. You're always using your blood flow and it's always reducing. The other resource, however, is frenzy. Right now, this is the best word I can kind of get to it. I could probably replace it to something else, which is the under resource. Frenzy builds up. You're always increasing your frenzy. So as of right now, like, my idea would be, I'll use out of 10. I'm not sure it's out of 10. You might start with like 10 blood flow, 0 frenzy. However, one big thing about this, and what I'm going to be kind of doing a little bit of the Japanese influence here, is kind of the idea that it is, if frenzy exceeds current blood flow, the vampire is starving and going insane. This is bad. You don't want to do this. So, for example, if my blood flow is 6 and my frenzy is 7, I'm going insane. This is bad. At the end of the session, if I'm not able to reduce this frenzy down at all, I'm going to lose my character. Because again, one shot available. That's the big thing. We want this to be very easy to understand and very quick as well. That's one of the big ideas. So, let me check something. Okay. So, again, I'm probably going to increase the amount of basic resources here, but these are kind of the resources are going to be doing, with the idea of the frenzy exceeds current blood flow. And if we consult my notes here, the blood flow ever dips below frenzy when you take damage. Yeah, actually, we do this. Damage, actually, it's to say is like raw damage is frenzy. So if I take 4 damage, I'm not, I thought, oh, I've taken 4 damage, let me reduce a health pool. No, it's let me increase my frenzy. You're not gaining anything. That's the problem. You're not gaining anything, but you're only losing it. This is a little bit of how Dragon Rouge works. Just a little bit. I'm going to be borrowing just a smidge from Dragon Rouge as well, but not everything. So the concept here is, again, I've been hit, I've taken 4 damage. I'm going to increase my frenzy. However, I might have expended blood flow to actually, try to mitigate some of it, or try to avoid taking the damage. So your blood flow is always decreasing, your frenzy is always rising, to the point where they are going to meet, and that's bad. You don't want to exceed your frenzy over your blood flow. So this is kind of the, how do I want to say this? This is the control resource as well. This is where a majority of the game comes from, you always kind of wanting to control that. However, this is the big thing. is that frenzy is good. If we put this down here, frenzy is good. Frenzy is good. More efficient expenditure. Actually, more efficient use, I should say. So it's kind of along the idea that you can spend blood flow to do things, or you can spend one frenzy. You can increase your frenzy by a little bit to get more, but it's harder to get rid of frenzy. It's your control resource. You're always wanting to push it, but you always want to raise it, but you don't want to also raise it at the same time. That's what I'm thinking of. So it's like there's a benefit for raising your frenzy really high. That's one of the big things. There's a very noticeable benefit from raising that, just that raw ferocity up. Because you're going mental. That's a good thing, though, because you're getting stronger, you're getting faster, you're getting tougher, but you are also going irrevocably Bananarama crazy, which is bad. You don't want people to go to Bananarama crazy, because Bananarama crazy people die. Very simple. Hopefully I'm sounding alright, too. But let's see. So the gameplay is very episodic. So let me see. So blood flow, killing people directly, making frenzy, which is bad, under large threat, forcing them to work together. Yeah, so okay, actually that reminds me, I need to add in. I'm going to add in this right like over here or something. I'm going to put you right here, which I'm going to call the pillar, which we're going to call the pillar. Or actually we'll call it the hope for right now. The hope idea is that these are physically weak, but support strong. You need the hope, they'll say, the hope to keep alive. Because that's one of the very few ways you can be able to reduce your frenzy, which is controlling it using this support character. It's a very weak support character. And gameplay-wise, we're going to be doing basic concept is very simple. We're going to be using a phase system. Phase system is going to be a very standard one. We've seen phase systems before, and we're going to continue using a phase system because these are very simple. We're going... Okay, just booted me out there. Cool. Awesome. Please tell me you didn't delete everything. I would be really sad if you just fucking killed all my work. Come on. Come on, I believe in you. I believe in you, Miro. Miro, please. Miro, I'm begging you. Miro. Miro. There we go. That was weird. Okay. But yeah, the idea here being like we're going to have our introduction phase, which is going to lead into our, most likely like a investigation phase, which is then going to lead into a conflict phase. Most likely I could probably put in like an introduction phase. We'll do like, I guess we can call it like a story phase. I'll just use this like a story phase for right now. Like, in the introduction, you obviously are going to introduce all your characters. Story, you're going to be telling the narrative. Investigation is like you're going to be trying to figure out what the issue is. And then conflict, you're actually going to fight. And then it's going to be the, we'll call it the conclusion phase. Very short, to the point, with the goal being, this is one shot of, one shot possible. Well, actually, we'll do one shot possible, but campaigns are also possible. But it's more along the idea with this phase system is that you are, more accurately would be to call this the it's that phase system conclusion phase. Actually, we can probably So it's kind of this idea, like we're always kind of marching forward with the phase system. Characters can be lost during the conclusion phase due to vampire madness. I don't know what to call it. It's just going to be called vampire madness so far. Okay, so attributes. I'm not 100% on the attributes of D6 game, though. Not 100% on that one. As for this section, I'm going to... what am I looking at here? Yeah, it's this frustrating reality when you completely realize what you have. Actually, okay. Because in this particular situation, we're going to do Black Blood Syndrome, which is pretty much going to be, hey, you have a disease which pretty much makes you vampire meth. Which their idea is they reduce frenzy, control blood flow, and more along the lines of agent of the organization. Because this person is fundamentally human. So if we actually go to this shape right here, we mark it right here. Like, this person is human. That's one thing I want to get across. The handler is human in a vampire world. So it's kind of that idea. So we're kind of working with that. So we've got all of this. Power, ice, frenzy, under resource, blood flow, over resource. These can change a little bit. That brings me actually to put you like right. It reminds me. I'm gonna make this its own little section over here, which is the idea of combat. It's gonna be a little bit idea here is that we want to make sure combat can be kind of a few different things. One of the core ideas behind combat is that I don't want it to be, and people are pinging me. Why are people pinging me? Why are you the way that you are? So the idea here would be more along the lines of, ironically enough, because I just went over the Avatar game in a video form, so I wanted to, but I actually even say there I like the combat idea, because that's one of the ideas that I'm going to go with here, is more along the line of, like, I guess the best way to say it is, like, feral combat. Because, like, vampire, like, with the main idea being, like, vampire versus vampire. Like, vampire versus vampire equal fucking nightmare animal fight. Which is vampire versus human equal dead human. Dead human. Actually equals, yeah. Dead human. And human versus human is skill and determination. That's kind of the idea behind this kind of feral combat system is vampire versus vampire are these two are just slamming into one another. And so we're going to do this. I think the best way to word it is like a actually, we want to do the approaching chaos, which we can, if we borrow a little bit from the Avatar game directly, it would be the kind of idea of like aggressive, defensive, aggressive, defensive, and evasive. Which aggression defeats evasion. Actually, no, it would be. How would we want to do this? Defense beats aggression, but evasive beats defensive. eats defense. So defense beats aggression, which defeats evade, which beats defense. So the idea is that we select. So the idea being more that you would select your approach and then you just go to ham on each other. If I chose defense, I get to do a certain number of actions. If I chose aggression, I get to do a certain number of actions. If I choose evade, I do something. However, if you choose the counter, like, you've obviously kind of got an advantage. So it's like, counter equal advantage, or counter equal soft advantage. Because a hard advantage would be along the lines of, I went aggressive, but you chose, I went defensive, you chose to go aggressive, I beat you, I get something you don't. But soft advantage would be, because I went defense, I have more options to go against what you're doing. Oh, give me 1 second. I need to, let me do, let me just type in pain. Notepad has a stream? Nah, I don't do this. The entire reason I am fucking here is just because I feel like it. Right. Delicious. Let's see. I don't know about this one though. I'm feeling because like Avatar had soft advantages, because it would be like, oh, you went defensive, that means you get something to kind of inadvertently counter aggressive plays. However, we go counter. If we do a hard advantage, we can give them like an extra die, just because like, hey, you're going this. However, I think if we do that, because then you're in this weird situation where if we tie it to various stats, because if we do this, if we tie it to various stats, if we tie a hard advantage to various stats, what would happen is characters would focus on their best or worst. Which means that's something that you, the player, can use to kind of ascertain an advantage. Hey, I know this guy is really aggressive. I mean aggressively so. I know that, so because I know he's aggressive, I'm going to just defend. I'm going to, we rush in there, he leaps at me, I'd go kind of more defensive, we exchange blows, I'm going to get an advantage over him. I have a fundamental, win over it. But if you're going your worst to be like, I just need a little advantage over it, so I'm trying to predict you, you're trying to predict me. But if you're just really absurdly weak in one aspect, you're if you immediately get, you can type in chat, Jord. Let me think. You can. Because if you have an immediate advantage over something, one of the ideas is what's going to happen is that you're going to leap in, you're going to start wanting to fight. But if you're shit at something, if you're just bad at defending yourself, going defensive isn't a good idea. Because even if you do get an advantage, you're still going to be at a pretty bad disadvantage. It's like, I'm going to defend, but I have really shit defensive stats, so I'm just going to get swacked even if I do get a little advantage. So maybe going aggressive, kind of playing up to your advantages, but also playing up to your disadvantages would also be kind of the back and forth on that. You're both crashing into one another, getting angry on it. I'm not making a Twitch account with my real phone number just to post in chat. I have my Discord open, by the way. God, y'all terrified of just putting a fucking phone number in. Jesus Christ, people. They already have your phone number, by the way. I can guarantee you. If you've ever bought anything off Amazon, they already have your phone number. Remember that. Like it is not difficult for companies to get your phone number, unfortunately. There's a reason I get scam calls every other fucking week. Let's think. What am I looking at here? Weed and porn. Yeah, those are the. I don't get SMS messages though. I do not get those. I block the shit out of those. I get phone calls. I get all the. I get my favorite ads. Those are the best ones. Let's see. Because again, because like vampire fights are feral nightmare fights, because most of these are going to be 1v1 or 1v3s. Like it's like you have this immense advantage, but it's like actually there we go. If you're outnumbered, you have the advantage of always affecting everyone on the other side. If you go aggressive and you hurt them, and you say do like 6 damage or whatever, everyone is taking 6 damage. You've done 18 damage for the cost of maybe not that much. So that the advantage going back and forth. You might get hit 3 times, but you're hitting them. So it's kind of that idea of like, I can do a lot of damage, you can do a lot of damage to me, but it's like, a quartered animal fights the hardest, and that could actually work pretty well. Maybe like an advantage system. Maybe some kind of savior mechanic. Okay, that may not be the worst idea. Like, the idea too is that I want everything to kind of feel the same in that regard, being like, you're going aggressive, you're going defensive. But what I plan on doing, what we're going to do is, pretty much it's going to be like vampire action, vampire approaches, then human approaches. Vampires will always act first before humans. So if you get, you choose an aggressive action and I choose an aggressive action, if I'm human, you're going to act first because you're a vampire, and you're just going to be able to resolve everything right away. You're going to be able to fuck my shit up real quick. Well, I'm not going to be able to do much. The one advantage humans have are, 1, numbers. Usually they have just a shit ton more people acting at once. And there's also the advantage of, hey, I don't really have to worry about my, frenzy being like, you're always on a clock, effectively, as a vampire. Which is one of the main issues what we're going to be dealing with, so... Like, you're not going to win, like, the idea being, like, you're not probably going to win, but you don't want to win necessarily as human. Because if we do this... what did I want to say? It would be, first vampire is found in Berlin 19. I was debating on like 1976 or something. Like actually 1973. Let's do Berlin 1970s Berlin. Yeah, there we go. Kind of during the counterculture. Yeah, it was kind of during the counterculture era. So like Berlin art scene, 70s. Berlin inspiration created Berlin. Okay, so you have the kind of the first vampire is found in Berlin 1973 in a nightclub after being picked up for supposedly being on heroin, but he was He was just undergoing vampire starvation. So that's kind of the impetus for it. This guy was pretty much picked up in a Berlin nightclub because they thought he was tripping out on fucking heroin. They pick him up, they bring him to the hospital, being like, "Oh, you're gonna fucking die. You know, bad things are going down." He eats the IV. He's revealed like, I'm not high on heroin. I'm high on being a fucking vampire. And everyone's like, "Holy shit, vampires are real." And the thing being is, vampires are real, but man, are they dull. That's kind of the idea, is that vampirism is the idea that vampirism is a blood disease. Berlin 1970s music. Yeah, no, pretty much. Like, it was kind of the idea of like, not necessarily just Berlin, but something incredibly, how do I want to word this? Some place that it would be kind of the impetus of culture, because it would be some place like London. It would be some place like, again, Berlin. Some place where, like, yeah, of course the fucking vampire's, partying somewhere in Berlin in the 70s. Because he's a fucking vampire, and everyone's in Berlin at that time. Everyone's there, just in the middle of nothing, in the middle of the world. In both kind of the East and the West, you have this vampire who shows up. Otherwise, I'm thinking the Devilman nightclub scenes. Not necessarily that even. Because, again, one of the ideas is they found this guy because they thought he was tweaking out on heroin. They thought he was a tweaker. He wasn't cool. He wasn't doing anything. He was trying to find some chick to pick up so he can drink her blood. That didn't happen because they thought he was high. They pick him up, they bring him in, and he's like, fuck, I'm a vampire, oops. Whoopsie doopsie. Again, it's vampires are real, but man, are they dull. It's the idea of being like vampirism is a blood disease. Because, like, one of the big things about it is, like, I need to, like, over-explain vampires to reduce the mysticism behind it. Vampires can't really use, like, blood powers or anything. They're not like, let me just use my auspice to, It's the idea of, like, hey, vampires have pretty much, their blood is weird. They have to drink blood because they can't naturally produce their own. And because they can't naturally produce their own, this parasite, this disease that they have, pretty much makes their blood supercharge itself. In addition to giving them weird, what we would call supernatural powers, but to them are kind of normal. It's like, hey, I have extreme senses because all the blood flow throughout the body. I'm able to, like, increase my senses up to a ridiculous degree. Or like, hey, like even down to they're like overtly like, why are you so strong? Because I can pump my blood in weird ways. My blood wants to protect itself. That's why it's kind of like, it's a blood disease, but there's like clearly like a weird, like, this is completely unexplainable because Buffy, they always said it was PCP, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make a fucking Buffy reference, aren't I? That's the pain. Let's actually see. So if it's just rock, paper, scissors, who gets to decide what stat clashes against which? We're just rock, paper, scissors. This might work to sway play from dogpiling. Can you attack someone evasively or defensively? Also, can you attack someone evasively or defensively? To answer your question there, they actually explained it a little bit in Avatar Legends. The way how I'm envisioning this anyway is, acting evasively isn't necessarily like, I'm trying to avoid attacks or anything. It's, you're still being aggressive. You're still in the fight. It's just like, you're not like going for like a killing blow necessarily. It's, you're focusing primarily on like avoiding attacks or, making sure they don't hit you as much as less than you trying to hit them. Defensively is, I'm, going to block this blow and then retaliate rather than I'm just going to punch you in the face. It's a little bit different, because if you've ever seen like an actual fist fight or something go on in MMA, actually I'll use MMA as a good example. In a lot of MMA fights, what occurs is the guys will circle each other and then they'll launch at one another. They'll go in on each other, and you'll see some guys, bring up their arms immediately. They just want to take some blows and then they retaliate right back. Some guys want to just like move and they just want to tire you out just so. Yeah, I've seen and been in real fights, so I know stuff is a lot less granular than in IRL. Like that's one of the issues, and that's actually one of the weird reasons I like the Avatar systems combat idea. Didn't like the execution. I like the idea, and why actually they talk about this in another game I went over, a very good game for no apparent fucking reason, called It's a Dog's Life and Into the Woods. Both of those games actually have combat systems like this, which is the idea of like you are fucking animals. There's no like I'm going to use my sword to slash you. No, it's I'm a fucking chipmunk and I'm going to launch myself at you as fast as possible with the intent of ripping your throat out. And we're attacking one another. So I might rename them from a defensively or evasively and change the names to something perhaps a little bit more specific. But that's kind of like just the idea of like I'm trying to survive this attack, or I'm trying to just evade your attacks and retaliate, or I'm just trying to kill you. Like my job is to leap on top of you and just rip your throat out. Which is kind of how I want the fights to feel. Like when two vampires enter a fight, it's both of them kind of pause for a second, and both of them rip their shirts open and then jump at each other. It's kind of like there isn't really any nuance to the fighting. That's not the point. There's no like, yeah, I gotta do my quadratic cowboy combat techniques. No, it's we are two fucking feral animals leaping at one another to rip each other's throat out. And after a few blows, we roll out of the way and we kind of stop there for a second and reassess what the next plan is. Like, man, he tore my asshole. I got a fucking gnarly cut here, but I'm still going. I'm still active, being like, because I scratched his eye so he can't see very well, or he did this, and then we launch at each other again. Which I want it to feel very, how do I want to word this? Combat in this game, I want to feel like this isn't like normal. Like this is horrifying to literally anybody else except these vampires, which is like, this is completely normal. This is fine, as they say, as they are like just slamming one's skull into the ground repeatedly because he won't go down. Now, the problem with fast, simple, high lethality combat, it's kind of boring. That's the big thing, though. That's the big thing, Jord, is that this isn't high lethality. You're so durable. And that's the big thing. You are so durable that you can take quite a bit of blows. That you can, you're rolling out of the way, you're rolling out of there. You're two vampires. You're healing automatically. That's one of the big reasons, like, you're going to build frenzy up. Is you take a nasty scratch across the floor. It's like you're bleeding for a second, and you kind of jump up. You do a little thing there, and it's healed because you're a fucking vampire. And then you launch back at each other. Punch, 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 punch. If you're a human, though, if you're a regular fucking person, that's a problem because you don't get that option. You've been cut. You're like stumbling back, and you're in danger. But as the handler, you should never be in combat. That's one of the things. Like I to get this to work, like you'd love. Don't get me fucking started on Song of Swords, Dor. Do not get me started on that. I have gone over Song of Swords before. I have stolen shit from Song of Swords. I've written a full game inspired by Song of Swords. It's a nightmare. I love it, and I fucking despise it at the same time. Song of Swords, like I could do. I've been debating on trying to do like a video on Song of Swords. I have the case ready. Like let me bring up the case here real fast. I wonder if I have curious cases, and I could do this, everybody, because it's my stream. Let me do the successors. Where is it? This is not updated, by the way. I need to update this actually. Oh yeah, the riddle of the successors of the riddle of steel, which I'm actually tempted to actually put riddle of steel on here. just by itself, just do these 5. That's kind of the plan. Because I would like to do this. I think there is like 2 more of these games, though, out there. Because I know Blades of the Iron Throne, Song of Swords, technically Band of Bastards, and Sword and Scoundrels are the same game. They just split in different directions. That's one of the issues. That's one of the problems. They split in different directions. And they're now separate games, so it's kind of like, I could probably do it on just those 4, but the problem is, like, those 2 are pretty much the same, and I usually like to do at least 4 or 5 games per case. I know for a fact there's another one, and I do not know when. Are the curious cases just batches of TTRU review? Yes, pretty much usually it's usually every other Saturday. That's my usual thing, is I do a curious case, is which I read a bunch of RPGs you've probably never heard about, and I go over them. And then I do the very long stream about, and then I tell everybody what my thoughts are on it. And being like, hey, you've probably never heard of this game, let me tell you about it. The reasons why it's called the curious case of this or that is the very first curious case was actually on a company who did a game called Kid World. And I accidentally stumbled upon them, and it was kind of like, I changed the name of the stream to like, oh, this is the curious case of his Vadra Entertainment. Because I was like, oh, I generally don't know. They used to be a little bit more, I think the earlier one, if you watch the earlier ones, they're a lot more, I think a lot more formal in a way, because it's just like, here's what I found on this game. Here's this information. Here's this information. Like, I think this is kind of weird. Those were like legitimate, like, here's a curious case. Like, I genuinely don't know what's going on with this game, or I genuinely don't know what's this. It kind of evolved into kind of like a first impression series of like, here's a game you've probably never fucking heard about, and why I think it's interesting, or what's up with this game. This next Saturday, not this Saturday, but the next Saturday after this, the 16th, I believe. 16th, we're going over meme games. Meme games are agony, and trust me, we got a few meme games this time around that I'm like, what the fuck? Those ones are actually like genuinely curiosities of like, where did this game come from? Who wrote this game? Why is this game the way that it is? Ironside immediately knows. He's talking about Chi-Chan. The big thing, Jordan, is that I try not to actually like go over people I know's games, because not this Saturday, next Saturday, the Saturday after this one, the 16th. I do it every other week. This Saturday is me losing my mind to Pocket Quest again. Usually it's noon EST. I usually post things in meandering thoughts about it. But yeah, I have a few ideas for it. Mind you, I have a lot of cases, because I have a lot of games just in my folder over time that I've just kind of learned about, what's going over, what's here. Technically, I can do let me do it. Let me see if I can do this one. Dekoye Shijon Wisha RPGs number 2. The Curious Case of World Building RPGs. These are pretty much done. I just need to actually do it, because there's a couple more, like there's like 2 or 3 more that I would want to add to this. Actually, like this one, I don't need to do this one anymore because it's already done. The stupid amount of fucking franchise games that I can never escape. Let's see. All these one child safety caps, Curious Case there. Unfortunately, literally nobody wants to vote for things. Like nobody votes for the ones that I want to do. Everyone votes for the sad ones. Like one of the ones that's this one, I'm actually going to save the mecha case for December. And yes, that does mean it's going to be a few months for the mecha case. However, I think there's like one more. I'm waiting for like 1 or 2 more mech games to come out before I really want to go over everything in it. As well as it is, I believe, Shinji's birthday. for You Cannot Stop Third Impact, in which we go over the entirety of Ad Ava. Hey, what are we doing today? I upload everything to my YouTube, George. Don't worry about that. Which you should totally follow me on my YouTube channel at Notepad Anon. Wink. All my videos will go up there. Wink. Wink. Follow me. I'm desperate for attention. Wow. God, something's in my eye. Fuck. Ugh. Yeah, what we're actually going over today, what we should be going over, is Sanguine Nights and Terrible Curses here. Which, as you can see, Draco, there's a few things we went over. I would say currently the problem child that I'm a little bit not super confident about is like right here, this is the combat section. Little bit, I'm 50-50 on it. They can go a few different ways. Yeah, vampires are real, but man, are they dull. Vampirism is a disease. Vampire superpowers are derived from blood quality. So it's kind of that idea of, we go the idea of like hemodependent persons. It's the idea that, you know, vampirism was a problem through the 70s into the mid 80s, but by 2020X, they are just people. You can live technically forever, but the problem is they just, the big idea being like, if you're a feral hunter, you're always going to be a lot more on edge, and you're always going to be trying to find the next big hit. If you can just go down to the corner mart, and there's like the little vampire section of the pharmacy, in which you like walk up and you grab, oh, I think I'm feeling A or B today, being just like, oh, we got some new pig's blood in. Like, you put everything on the counter, you look at the guy being like, okay, let me swipe my debit card real fast. Damn thing declined. Give me 1 second. Bring out the other one, because that one, the fucking chip's broken. It always is. Swipe. Cool. You put your blood bags in your shopping cart with your fucking Gatorade that you got and leave. Pretty much vampirism's been tamed because nobody cares anymore. It was cool, not cool anymore. Which is like, I do actually have a very certain idea behind how vampires look, though. One of the big things here, we go over here. Shameless. Yeah, combat's always a pain. Yeah, this, especially in this game, because I have a very certain idea of how I want to do it, but doing it's its own thing. Call to action, my biggest weakness. You mean you're desperate for that ad revenue? I make like no fucking money on ad revenue. It's great. Our players are supposed to be able to play as both humans and vampires in the system. Sort of. You sort of can. Is the idea of like, most players are going to be playing vampires. Then there's going to be one person who has the option of playing a handler. Handlers have a special disease, which allows them to pretty much reduce people's frenzy. However, they are human, and they are very fragile humans. So it's kind of like one of those things, like we have this like attachable person, like you have a dedicated support class, you could say, that the vampires are very much encouraged to protect, but they are also, it's kind of that back and forth, being like, we have this emotional support human here that, if we are around long enough, they can actually help us reduce our frenzy down, so we can actually live. With the additional problem, is this regular person has to go into the vampire nightmare den, and they're just kind of sitting there being like, hello, I am a guy with a gun. And like, wow, good job. we're all feral animals on the verge of going insane. And you're just the dude, you're just a dude that the vampires like to hang around. It's kind of that both way. You know, it's kind of like a two-way street. I even kind of noted in my yeah, Chi-Chan, we're gonna go over Chi-Chan, don't worry. We'll go over that fucking nightmare. But yeah, it's kind of the where is it? Yeah. Yeah. They are both incredibly valuable as they can actively reduce frenzy, but a handler can be easily replaced. That's kind of like one of the ideas, being like, I may not even encourage, I may make it an optional thing, I may not, it kind of depends on how I want to do things. But yes, the vampires actually are very human looking, you know, very human looking. More along the lines of toreadors and things like that. They actually maintain human appearance from when they were turned. But they all have sclerosis. Is that the correct term? But they all have black sclera. Pretty much their eye is completely black normally. That's one of the things, which they're going to say is it is black because the blood's flowing weird. They don't bleed red, they bleed black. It's bileless. Actually, which we should actually bleeds. Yeah, so that it's kind of that idea being like they have, you know, they're very kind of odd looking, but they can make actually what I should say is there we go. And specifically, mind you, that's how you look like a fuckboy. So it's kind of the idea being like, you look very human. And you look incredibly human, but it's like one of those things where you look at it closely, you realize something's a little bit off. It's like, vampires don't breathe very hard unless they are making like a dedicated effort to breathe. You don't actually, you know, like, they don't twitch, they don't blink. It's little things like that that if you make like it takes a little bit of effort, but you can mimic a lot of things, which a lot of people do. Which it's one of those things like we all mimic small things throughout our entire lives that we don't even really notice we're kind of maintaining until someone kind of points it out. You know, it's kind of like the idea of being like when it's in the middle of the night, you step slower. You know, it's like I don't want to wake anybody up, so you start walking a little. You might not even make like the conscious effort of saying I want to walk slower so I don't, you know, wake anybody up. It's like people are sleeping, I'm gonna be a little bit sneakier. It's kind of shit like that. You're making like a conscious effort to do it, but also not. But one of the actual look of this actually came from a book I got. It was a short story I was writing a while. It's been like 3 years. It's been like 2 years since I opened it. And the entire idea was vampires that look like this. They were very different, by the way. They just look similar. That was like their big calling card, is that they always had this black outer eye. And they were, the idea being like they were very creepy looking, but they maintained kind of like a conscious effort. They could have normal eyes, they could look very normal, but it was kind of like this constant, like, kind of bring it up. Now, the idea being like, yeah, you walk into a store, it's fine. The government wants you dead, or are you free to be a citizen as long as you pay taxes? No. You are free. You are a tax-paying American citizen. You're a tax-paying person. They don't give a shit. That was a problem back in like the 70s and 80s in this setting. Where it was like, man, we don't really know. You're a 150-year-old vampire. But then it was like, I don't really care. Have you paid your taxes? You're like, yeah. Oh, okay. Cool. You paid your taxes. You are a boring person that's been a vampire. Being like, okay, have you killed anybody? Being like, no, I get, I've been, pretty much chewing on my family members for years. That's just a thing that occurs. Every week or so, my cousins and their kids will show up, and we do a little bit of IV stuff, and then I have, lunch for the next, 4 or 5 months. Like, it's not really like a big deal. Like, yeah, as long as you're paying taxes, no one cares. Because it's like, by the time in setting right now, and like kind of 2020X, is they've integrated fully into society, and nobody cares. It's like, oh hey, John, and John the vampire, who's 250 years old, is like, hey, hello, I'm going down to the corner store, being this like, do you have your real money, or are you not using your real money again? Be like, ha 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 ha, and then everybody laughs. It's that kind of gist to things, which is one of the big ideas of the setting, which is you are effectively Vampire Glowies for the guys who go a little bit overboard. You're pretty much hunting down people who this happens to. You're going insane. You're hunting down vampire criminals who kind of are going against the system a little bit, being like, wait a second, you are pretty actively like hurting people. Like, you're a vampire, killing people, or you're a vampire who's gone absolutely bananarama and you start eating people. It's not it's the same equivalent of saying like, hey, this person is completely fucking bonkers and he's, has a fucking death cult, maybe we should stop him. It's more along the lines of like, hey, we can try to stop him, or we can send in these guys, the vampire, glowies, to fix the problem. Which is kind of one of the more kind of humorous aspects of setting, is being like, vampires don't like you because you are literally the feds. And when the feds show up, nobody wins. Everybody loses. And it's like, man, this is both incredibly amusing, but also incredibly sad. This is like, yeah, these people have gone, like, this is a disease that you need to control. And if you don't control it, you just, instead of, dying, you just go insane and irreversibly, bonkers and want to eat people. It's like, not really like a problem. It's the same people being like, oh yeah, you have severe schizophrenia. Like, we can give you a medication for everything. Everything's there, but the people who aren't treated are the people who are usually a little bit more dangerous. Let's see, maintain human appearance. And it's one of the things, like, I want this to have a few different possible situations, being like, hey, this is a vampire cult, or hey, these are, people who are like vampire supremacists, or like, hey, these are people actively hunting vampires. You need to stop them. Like, these are like anti-vampire people who are pretty jackass people, being like, the vampires don't much care for you, but you're also like the only ones kind of rooting for them in some governments. Let's see, vampires, superpowers right from blood quality, which is kind of the big thing, is this over here, which is kind of in the idea of, in lore, is you guys are barely fed and you're kind of kept on the verge of starvation because that's the best way you can fight them. Most people are fat and happy. You work your 9 to 5, most likely you work your 5 to 9s, and then you go home, you eat a blood pack, you rest up for the day, you go back to work. So, Sanguine Nights and Terrible Curses. This terrible curse is very easily controlled, but people who don't need to be kind of smacked a little bit. systems should work. I mean, if we look at like what the attributes are going to be like, if we want to keep attributes like relatively simple, because what game would we be really kind of basing this off of? Let's think, like, what kind of game would we be basing this off of more than anything? I do have this one plugged in, so that's not correct. Maybe it wouldn't be ops and tactics. That would be silly. See, World of Darkness is kind of like the immediate one because that's the funny one. That's the funny haha we should all laugh at. Because if we consult Double Cross, yeah, as God often intends. And yes, this game is very much inspired by the fact that I did go over a bunch of JTRPGs not too long ago. If we do, just give me some 18 gorillion fucking pages of shit. It's great. I love it. See, this is the easiest method, would be doing this, but this doesn't also feel right. This feels a little bit too light for what I'm working with. So maybe, let's see, what am I looking for here? What I'm looking for here? I want a little bit of nuance, but like not like too much. Oh, fucking Night Wizards. Welcome to Night Wizards, everybody. This is a game that it's like kind of difficult to go over because it's a very odd game. So if we do something like see, if we give everything the slightly different names, we could probably call it something like ferocity. Awareness works. Because luckily, these don't need to be like very extensive characters, because these are designed for one shot, like kind of one shots or like very focused campaigns. The best way to think about this kind of game that I'm imagining is either a made-for-TV movie or a miniseries. Not like I'm gonna play this for a year with my friends. No, this is like 6 months and we're done. Like not even 6 months. Like Night's Black Agents. That wouldn't be a terrible idea. Let's do a quick look. What stats does Night's Black Agents actually use? Because right now we're looking at stat. Okay, it's actually it's a gumshoe. It's a gumshoe game that brings its own set of issues, because that means there aren't really any attributes we're working with, and that means it is kind of an attribute system, unless we want to go for like a skill system. Jesus, would that be correct? Because like on one hand, we can make it like an attribute system. Like, okay, so there's two options here. We can either go full-on attribute-based. Put you over there. We can either do attribute-based or skill-based. Now, immediate thing in my mind is saying attribute because we have this over here. But skill-based wouldn't be a terrible idea. That honestly wouldn't be the worst idea I've ever had, but it'd be it would have to be a curated skill list. That's the idea. A very curated skill list. Also, hello, Luna. Oh, ran out. Yeah, it'd be a very curated skill list, though. That would be one of the big ideas. Not a very extensive one, but it wouldn't need to be extensive. So maybe if we're going for like stats wise, ferocity would be our, strength and smashing. Awareness would be our, kind of perception and perception. We'll do like perception and understanding. Knowledge would be our knowing and learning. kind of like our being, these are like very basic stats. Unless we do something like, let's see, do I, what am I looking at here? What am I looking at here? What am I looking at here? There's an answer here, and I don't know what it is. If I want to be a little bit wonky, what I can do is see if I want to get, again, if I want to be really wonky, like this is literally like the Japanese fucking blood type. That could be really cursed, by the way. That could be fucking horrifically cursed. Bear with me. So, if you're a type A, let's say you have type A, type B, type AB, type O. So it's more along the idea of like, as type A, you are it's more along the line of like you are creative, cooperative, stubborn. Let's use like stubborn but uptight. Type B is empathetic, passionate, selfish, but erratic. Type AB is rational, adaptable, indecisive, but critical. Well, type O is confident, resilient, self-centered, but unstable. So it's kind of like we base the stats off fucking Japanese blood type. Actually, no, this is gonna be cursed. Okay, Japanese blood type personality. So here are all the base personality theories between all these different types. So if we do this basic one, ratio in Japan, ABs are very uncommon. Different blood types, peel the orange cleanly, artistic shapes. Let's see. Peeled roughly, wrapped around a used tissue. Broke the peel into small pieces and made a mess. Let's see. Is blood type theory in Japan with blood harassment. Blood type theory. Let's do Japanese blood type theory. Other types, like other type, blood type personality theory. The entire basic idea would be, mind you, it's bullshit, by the way, but that's the joke. Actually, we do blood type list. Are we serious? This is what I'm seriously doing. 4 main blood type groups. Unless we do something. So we use this as the basic blood types. Use that as 4 stats. We have to give one more. I feel like we need a 5th one. What would be the 5th one? Feels like we need a 5th stat here. Actually, if we really want to be specific. Wagey says good. This Wagey says good night from Brit Bongistan. Looking forward to Curious Guys. Yeah, thank you for stopping by, Witch Krieg. Yeah. So, have fun. You know, let's get some good rest. I will need to shit post relentlessly eventually, and you'll see me. Are there other night creatures in the world? Yes. That is a, how do I want to word this? That is like one of the fundamental parts of this particular game, is that I want to use this system right here and port it over to other games. Because if we go to things, notepad, Anon wants to do, I do have one other one, which is right here, Ravenous Nights and Infectious Curses. The idea of werewolves. Kind of a little bit different context, but it's like, yeah, here's the werewolf version of this particular game, which this is based entirely off a single manga. It's like 5 pages, and I'm like, this is it. This is my entire idea now, and it's fucking perfect. I don't deal with werewolves as much. I don't think werewolves are nearly as interesting. And every Native American just left. Actually, what we could do here, we can actually add in the, we'll call it the type, we can either call it type V and get like really on the nose, or actually it would be type, or to be, we just call it bile. Actually, I think type V would be the most accurate, which would be vampiric abilities, control, self-reliance, and predatory instinct. So yeah, here are the 5 blood types. We can apply these to be our stats. These are going to be our attributes. Oh my god, this is fucking cursed, and I am in. You know what? Sometimes you just need to make something completely fucking stupid, and why not make all the attributes based off blood type? Based entirely off a crackpot Japanese blood type theory, which is complete horseshit. However, what we could do with that, we'll give him like around like, if we apply, let's say about 5 skills per category, per blood type. And then that actually means what we can do is we can do a little bit of negotiation. We can manipulation of core stats via injection, which is one of the big things of what we can do with this, because I'm very smart, is one of the advantages of the handler is that they can actually control your blood type. They already pretty much, they have access to pretty much be able to do different things, and they would have injections and stuff. They are able to inject you with very certain things to make sure that, or we rework it being like they're a universal donor in a way, where it's like, okay, give me a second, as they inject a fucking needle into your side and take it out, and when they inject it into you, it's, okay, you have more type A. So like you're increasing a stat here, or you're increasing a stat there, at the cost of you're raising your frenzy. You're getting more blood into it, but you're increasing your blood flow and you're increasing your stats. I'm a genius. I am a genius. This is why I do these streams. This is why I like to talk to myself. You forgot, you just. No, please. Because if we do this in particular, what we can do is the handler becomes infinitely more useful, because they can now control people's attributes. So man, we're lacking a little bit of intelligence in the group. We're acting a little bit, we're a little bit meat-headed right now. They can be like, cool, give me a second. They have a calm place, they inject the fucking needle into them, they do some stuff, and then suddenly it's like, okay, your AB is risen. You are better at doing AB stuff. Like you're more rational, you're more adaptable, you're more indecisive, but you're a little bit more indecisive because you're just a little bit smarter. And at the end of the session, it's kind of like one of those things, like at the end of things, like all your stuff kind of equals out eventually behind like what you really are. So if you quickly like just stab yourself full of type A, being like, yeah, your frenzy's skyrocketed at this point. However, you're a little bit more adaptable. And that's one of the big problems is like, hey, you want to restore blood flow, they either have to eat, which is going to be one of the 4 types, in which case that. What attribute I use to punch people in the guts? That's where things get a little bit wiggity wackety. That's where things get a little bit wonky. If I really want to do this, though, what I would say would be most likely type O, unless we tie it to, like, technically you can use everything, but each of these 5 are tied to a different combat situation. So it's more like we would have to add in two more things effectively. We'd have to tie in 2 more things, but it'd be like, okay, the type A's want to do this, the type B's want to do this, types, type A, B's, etc., etc., etc. Or we use the skills to kind of determine it, being like, I have the fighting skill, and because I have the fighting skill in my, type A or something, like I'm a little bit this. That could be a little bit funky, little bit wonky there. But if we do that, we can say like A beats B, A, B beats O, beats V, but V is defeated by A. Or if we really want to be a dick, it's kind of like the idea of being like, type V beats everything, but the problem is you're going to fucking frenzy if you keep using it. Like, it costs an active amount. So you wouldn't necessarily have the punch people skill. You would have a physicality, and under physicality would be like, oh, I'm a very physical person, but I'm wanting to help someone real fast. I want to leap into danger and help someone. Be like, okay, type O plus physicality. Cool. Or like, hey, I want to throw something at somebody. I want to just take this and just throw it. Modern Vamp. I would say I would probably do as I did in that original book, which is vampires can last about 30 minutes in the sun before they just crumple up and die. They do not like the sun. Sun is bad. One of the big issues being like during the day they just get tired. Like it's just like their body just wants to shut down and go to sleep. They do not like the sun being out, which I can probably attribute to the fact of like you're having a deficiency in something, like your body doesn't produce something, and that's neat. If we really want to be mean about it, what I could say is your body rejects vitamin D. Vitamin D is the one you get from the sun, right? Sun vitamin. Sun vitamins. Yeah, it's vitamin D. So it's kind of like the idea of being like your body doesn't like producing vitamin D, as well as because your skin's kind of weird. It's like you're literally burning from the inside out, being like, oh no, I'm burning. I'm a vampire in the sun. It's more along the line of like, yeah, because you have 0 UV protection. The sun is literally just lighting you on fire. So yeah, no shit, you don't want to be in it. It's like you can't process that kind of stuff. That's why at night it's like you're a little bit more functional because the moon doesn't produce that. You produce the light, but not the direct light. Which could tie into a couple different things of like, yeah, here's a vampire eco-terrorist group because but they just want to block out the sun and shit like that. It's like, yes. Yeah, that thing is there was like you could tie it into some interesting little story bits, being less like, hey, yeah, these vampires want to live in like an industrial smoggy hellhole in China because the sun doesn't shine brightly there. You have so many clouds there, they can kind of go out during the day a little bit more actively. That could be kind of funny in its own right. That could work. So if we tie all this together, we make skills a little bit more universal. Actually, what we can do is we can have like a round, but can be applied to anything, to any blood type. So it's like, hey, I want to be creative, do this. I want to be empathetic, I can do this. I want to be rational, I want to do this. With the downside being, if you are really high in some things, you could probably do like berserk, not berserk checks, but kind of like opposite checks, being like, if you roll too high, you're going to fail. You're like, oh, this is like, oh, a target number 5 reversal check, which is the idea of like, hey, your blood type A, like this is something really hard for you to resist because you have like so much A. I mean, like blood type reversal. Which is kind of like ties into this system a little bit more, because it's like you're actively drawing the power from that blood. You're actively getting stronger and stronger because you're kind of spiking your blood. The more you play into whatever the highest type is, the better. If you're only type O, if you only have 1 in type O, you're not very confident. However, you're also incredibly even-keeled. You are very stable. And so when something comes up being like, it's time to do something crazy and wacky, you're like, no. But that's why also kind of like doing type V could be interesting. Yeah, so there's a couple ideas where we can manipulate there. Because like one of the big things is like humans would obviously only have these 4, so they have a little bit more control over their attributes than vampires, but they can't obviously increase them outside of naturally increasing them. Okay, alright. We combine all this together, I think we can get something pretty interesting. Alright, I'm going to be having to head out here in a bit, but I think we made really good progress. Inadvertently, I think we made really good progress, and I think I got a few good, really stupid ideas in here to make it work. So thank you all for watching. Little bit shorter today, but honestly, I kind of had an idea what we were going, and I got a lot more out of it than I was thinking. We're going to need to expand this system out a bit. I have a few ideas of what we can do to kind of like... Luckily, since we were going to have to have 5 of these, we can do kind of like a bizarre, like, almost a little bit of like a Godai, which is the idea of like, this one feeds into this one, which feeds into this one, which feeds into this, which feeds into this. However, you have the issue of like this, or like if we go here, like this one counters this, this counters this, this counters this, this counters this, but this counters this. So it's kind of like, it's one of those things like everything kind of counters each other eventually, or nothing's going to happen and you just kind of are allowed to leap at one another. It's kind of that instinctual just stop, wait, leap, which does allow you to kind of mix things up, being like, oh no, they know I'm like very rational and going to take my time. Händlershama, I need you to jack me up full of type A. And you're like, why do you need so much type A? Because I need to beat this guy. So it's kind of, we can use that to be the investigation, being like, we got to investigate who, you pretty much have to put a case together for this guy, or this person that you're actually investigating, of like, what's his blood type? So what, who is he? What powers does he have? Which is going to be power. Bad. Sag. There we go. Sag. I have a few ideas. It's going to be kind of how the game plays out. What's the site I'm using? This is Miro. You kind of see it up here in the corner. Miro, I actually really like Miro, to kind of give you an idea. I like Miro because you can kind of get a lot of different little stuff here. I can technically create additional boards. I just have mine. They give you a bunch of options of like, oh, I want to make flow charts. I want to make visual tables, touch points, brain writing. I just did a blank board and just put a bunch of sticky notes on it. And I really like this because I like to visualize things. You kind of see here like all the little projects I have. As you can see, you do actually get a lot of space. So I use a very small portion of it, of like the full board you get. And you can actually use this as a collaboration. like collaboratively with a team or stuff. I heard Notion's a little better for teams. I like Miro just for myself because I like to put everything together. But if you want to do it your own way, you totally can. But yeah, use Miro. Miro, I will shill you for free. Just like, I don't know. Give me a shout out, you mango. Give me a written acknowledgement that I'm a real boy, please. Yeah, no, this is Miro. I use it a lot. I always recommend it in the threads because I like it. But Notion's another one that I see people use. Yeah, Notion's this one. I would recommend Notion if you have like a team more than anything. Like you have like a couple people together to work on a project, but like this one works pretty well. You do need to sign up for an account to kind of like share it. But there was actually a period of time where I was actually debating on like, oh, I want to, share this team with other people, and like, oh, we can totally work together, and like, oh, like here's anyone with the link can like view what my notes are and stuff. And actually, I could do that literally right now. I just realized I can do this. Neat. I might do that actually. So yeah. That's Miro. That's my shill for Miro too. So if you want to pay me Miro, I'm down. Just give me my fucking money. All right, I'm going to call it there for today. We're going to start formally on this next Monday. Maybe wondering why next Monday, not this Friday. I don't like starting projects on Fridays because it's one of those things like it's just like you have a day and then it's like a 2-day weekend. Usually something goes on, and then on Monday it's like episode 2. It gets a little bit wonky. It's good to have a rhythm for me anyway. And it just works. It works best for me. So this Friday we will most likely be doing more Pocket Quest stuff. I did post the thanks for Pocket Quest in PDF Doomer time in my server. Yeah, being shifting a game of 15th dimensional backgammon where everyone's injecting with some different blood types to keep their enemies on their toes. Yeah, that's one of the big advantages of the enemy. That's one of also the big thing with them is that they can a lot more actively shift their blood type around. They're a little bit more anomalous, and they really don't care about frenzy as much as you do. Kind of as a fed boy, you aren't supposed to feed on other people. That's one of the big things. You're not supposed to feed on, citizens, and because you're on a fucking job and they don't want you to go insane, they can. So it's like, if you that's what it's like. You kind of got to get the pressure going. And if you're not really able to get them fast enough, they might have shifted their blood types around a lot due to just eating people, which is one of the biggest advantages of kind of the more manufactured, what's the term for it? Oh, cool. That's good. I heard that you were having some, I saw that you were having some issues there. Actually, what's the synthetic blood? Yeah, artificial blood is, this is like, two main types are hemoglobin-based oxygen carrier and perfluorocarbons. Yeah, which I know I'm going to have to actually address artificial blood, like like actual honest to god synthetic blood. I have a few ideas of what I plan on doing with these particular ones, and like one of the big things I do plan on doing is kind of like synthetic, like because vampires were so common at that point. You hit a point where it's like technology and stuff for this became a lot better and a lot more a lot more immediate of a concern. So yeah, you can buy synthetic blood. It's a shit ton cheaper than everything else. The problem being is where all of like drinking or having regular blood kind of makes you a little bit smarter, a little bit more empathetic. Pretty much like a vampire can be like, if they want to make sure they can deal with people better, they chug a bunch of A. They chug A blood. They're chugging A and B blood. They just chug that before a party and they're ready to go. But if you have, say, a lot, if you just are drinking synthetic blood, it's kind of evening you out. It's downers. That's why most people drink synthetic blood. Because you can get blood that tastes like cherries, or you can get blood that tastes like a steak. It's kind of like, you can have this, but it's kind of like you're kind of evening out a lot more. And that's why a lot of vampires are kind of chill these days. It's like, we don't really want to eat people. Why would we? I can literally have a full steak dinner in my blood anytime I feel like it. So that's kind of the idea there. I think that could be an interesting idea. Yeah, shine on. Yeah, shine on for the conversion to Warhammer Fantasy roleplay to only war. That's going to be an odd one. I do not envy you trying to do that, but I'm going to finally call it here. So thank you all very much and have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm going to dinner tonight, and it's going to be good and heavy, very heavy. All right.